And understand that Jim Nelson is on his way, but apparently there's a freighter that has the county bridge open.
Oh, yeah.
And traffic is backed up, so we'll look forward to Jim's arrival. Just one technical question. Are all the lights on now?
No.
We're in the dark. We're in the dark. We had
most of my life.
the screens open, or the blinds, and then shut them because the sun came out. And
It's a weird, freaky thing.
okay. The next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved and supported that the agenda be approved as distributed or published. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. Next, we have the approval of the minutes of the April 14th meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there support?
I will second it.
Moved and supported that the minutes of April 14th be approved as distributed. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have approval of bills, vouchers number 13,365 to 13,373, shown on pages 7 through 12 of our packets. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I have one quick question for, I guess, for Lorinda. On page 10, and it's just an accounting thing. The second check,
Second check, okay.
53349, shouldn't that be dispersed over 3
Yeah.
accounts?
I don't know why they didn't split it up that way. Huh.
Yeah. Is
Yep,
it
I'll
just
check with them.
Yeah, check that out.
Yep.
That's my only question.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there support? Is there support?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and support. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The vouchers are approved. Next, we have review of statements of revenues and expenses, and this really is the first month of the fiscal year, so not much shows up. Are there any questions? If not, we'll file the statements of revenues and expenditures. Next, we have approval of the treasurer's report for April 2015.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Move and support that the treasurer's report be accepted. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're moving right along. Again, I always want to remind everybody, it's important when we get that treasurer's report, we look on the back at our fund balances for both the storm drainage millage and the road improvement fund. So it's on page 19. Next is public comment, and outside of staff, there's no other public here, so we'll move along. Item 10 is action items. Consideration of water and sewer increases for the 2015-16 fiscal year for the township. Lorinda?
Okay. Since 2010, a fixed monthly cost recovery from DWSD was established, and this was used to cover usage decline and revenue shortfalls for all the wholesale customers. Our new, for Grosio, the new fixed monthly charge will be going up from $45,580 to $58,400, which is a 28.12% increase. Now, the bill price per 1,000 cubic feet dropped, and it used to be $13.17, and it'll be dropped down to $10.87, which is a decline of 17.46. So when you combine the two, the overall increase imposed to us by the City of Detroit is going to be 8.4% over last year. During the budget hearings, we proposed on the water side just to increase the budget by 4.9% on the water side, and the sewer rates we were going to leave alone this year. The increase would overall would be about 3.53% increase over the previous year, and that's combined.
Is this needed because it's physically needed? I mean, we are short And we're running into a problem, we have to do corrective action?
Yes, we do have a revenue shortfall.
Okay.
Are there other questions?
I have a question. Miranda, we've been getting any pressure from Detroit Water and Sewer to sign on for any contract, or
No, we have not.
hadn't brought it up at all?
Nope, they have not brought it up.
How's the vote?
Let the minutes show that Commissioner Nelson has arrived, and I already explained that you were caught by a freighter.
That's not true. I was on the way back here from Dearborn Country Club, I gotta be honest. It was rough.
Well,
No
okay.
excuse.
Anyway, there was a freighter that had the bridge considerably tied up.
I just saw it.
So we didn't want to go into anything else.
I gotta be honest.
Informal attire, I know.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
All right. Well, we're glad to see you. Thank you for, you got here just in the nick of time. So as you walked in, we were discussing, we just had a report outlining the proposed water rate increase of 3.53%.
I've been reading about it, yeah.
I think one thing that we attached to this packet, if you go to page 26, I just wanted to point this out. There's a clipping out of the Detroit News, and it's very small and hard to read, but I did highlight a few of them. You can find in the left-hand column the Grosse Ile Township, and what it shows is a 17% decrease in the rate per 1,000 cubic feet of water that we buy wholesale. But on the other side of it, it shows that our monthly payment now is $58,400, which is a 28% increase in it. And I just want to explain what's going on there. So the monthly charge went from $45,000 to $58,000. If you look at the previous page, 25, you'll see that the second series of columns, the second is entitled price, and there's the billed monthly per cubic feet, and then there's the fixed monthly charge. Back in 2010, Detroit started to charge all of its customers, like Grosse Ile, a monthly charge, because what's happened is consumption in most of the communities had dropped, particularly with people moving away, losing population from the bigger cities like Detroit, industries closing. When industries closed back then, they used the water loss was tremendous. I think Dearborn lost almost 50% of its water use during that period of time. And so Detroit, in order to pay their bills, DWSD, the Detroit Water and Sewer System, had to start to charge a fixed fee, not just based on consumption. Well, our consumption, the fixed fee cost for us since 2010, it was monthly $10,688. It's now $58,400. So what Lorinda tried to explain in her report, the actual increase we're getting from Detroit for wholesale water is about 8%. The amount passed along to the user here on the island will be 3.53% if we approve this. And I just wanted to take a minute and explain that. One other thing, Ted, you had raised the question about the wholesale rate. I don't know, or about the contract, I mean. When's our contract expire?
It's expired.
It did expire? So we're operating here without a contract, and I think that, I've just figured that since the Detroit water system's in such a state of flux with the creation of the Great Lakes Water Authority, that they'll probably come back and try to clean all that up once the so-called Great Lakes wholesale portion of that split versus the retail portion, which would be for the city of Detroit, once that's concluded. Anyway, in this letter we got April 10th, 2015 from Detroit Water System, they mentioned that if the wholesale water customer is under the old contract, Detroit would like to offer you the opportunity to negotiate a new model contract. Currently, the vast majority of wholesale water customers, like Grosse Ile, are under the water model contract. The contracts offer customers many advantages compared to the old contract. Well, I don't know what those advantages are. I guess we'll have to see. But that's going to be something that's going to come to us sometime. All right, I just wanted to point that out. So, at any rate, back to the water rate increase. I don't think we have a motion on the floor. We had a report.
Support?
Moved and supported that we adjust the water rate 3.53% over the current rate to account for the increase we've received from the city of Detroit. Any further discussion?
You know, I had a question. I heard in some news media about a large, significant number of residents within the city of Detroit, physical boundaries, who hadn't paid their water bill. Does anybody remember what the amount was recently reported? I can't remember the number, but we're talking about a significant number.
Lots of millions.
Lots of millions.
20, 25 million a year.
And I think also, didn't perhaps Wayne State University or that institution of some sort on that campus have a large outstanding bill? And I cannot remember if it was for water or power. I don't remember. Does anybody remember?
I don't.
Not for the Wayne State.
Okay, okay. Power? Okay. All right, that's... Okay, Joe, do you happen to remember what the, if you heard the media report, what the number of residents who hadn't been paying their water bills in the city were? Okay. I don't mean to drag the meeting anymore, but when we vote on something, we're forced into an increased situation. We don't live in a vacuum. So realistically, we understand, and the taxpayers here on Grosse Ile should understand, that we all pay our bills. We empathize with short-term difficulties, and I look forward to a little better operation of the water distribution to us in the future at some point in time. I would hope that everybody else would too. That's it.
Okay, and on that topic, I think currently it's been in the news that Detroit is out trying to get people to pay up or sign up for that program for people that can't pay. And that's happening right now. There's like a 10-day deadline. All right, so, wait, yes, sir.
Talking about can't pay, what amount do we have outstanding for the people that are not paying in Grosse Ile?
Right now, anything, we calculated that today, as a matter of fact, Les. We calculated from $400 over. We have outstanding right now almost $287,000.
Of unpaid water bills?
I have no idea what that means, if it's high, low, or average, or...
Every year, it seems to creep up a little bit, and every year we send out delinquent notices. We send them out twice a year, and generally in September, last year, I think we sent about $117,000 to taxes, to winter taxes. So we do get our money eventually, but it just seems like that figure, every year when we do delinquents, it goes higher and higher.
Do you know if that's abandoned home, or homes that are not being, I mean, that it left, or we don't know the breakdown?
I don't know the breakdown on that, no.
Just to clarify, we get our money back if Wayne County gets their money. If that property should go delinquent and be sold for taxes or sold at auction, we don't get that money back.
Oh, you don't?
Yep. We only get it if, when Wayne County gets it, we get it.
So we don't get it when they sell a delinquent tax roll?
Nope. Not unless it's part of the delinquent tax roll, if that becomes part of the negotiation.
Roll into the taxes?
It is. We put it in tax.
We haven't turned it over yet.
But the minute it goes to foreclosure sale or auction, pretty well, they get a free title of that property and they just forget about us.
Okay. Well, and I've heard other communities recently just discuss this issue. It's very difficult to shut water off. I mean, that's one thing that some communities do. They just go in and shut it off if you're delinquent more than, let's say, 60 days or something. That's very difficult. It's a tough thing, but it does work. I guess it's a topic it's a good question, and I guess we can keep our eye on it at this point. It's easier to put it in the taxes. Any further questions or discussion? If not, we have a motion to approve the water rate increase of 3.53%. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carried. Thank you. Next action item has a long title to it. It's consideration of approval of the revised road and water system improvement bond program without the possibility of grant assistance for recommendation to the Township Board for the November 3rd, 2015 general election. So, a few comments. Here's where we're at, in my mind. We've met with the county. We submitted our plan. We've submitted this plan. Everybody familiar with it? Last October, to the Township Board and to the county. Last December, we met with the county, and if you recall, they said there's no way that we will ever be eligible for grant assistance, and the implication also is that there's no way that they're going to contribute to the resurfacing of any roads. They'll continue to repair potholes and do routine maintenance, but that's all the money they have, so they say, okay? All right, so with that being said, we either do nothing or we revise our program. So we've discussed this spring at prior meetings. We've looked at revising the program. So what's in your packet are a couple documents. First of all, I did most of this with the advice of Lorinda, of our engineer, and with the township manager. And you'll see on page 29 the revised program. And we're going to go through that and make sure we're all still in agreement on it. When we do that, I'm going to ask Lorinda to go up and show the map. We're going to want to refer to the map. But also included with this is a copy of the letter, which is page 31, to our township manager from Director of Wayne County Department of Public Services, Terry Spryzik, and it's highlighted, I think on page 31, it's all yours highlighted, and it says, with respect to the project you've highlighted in your November 19th memo, expressing the township's expectations for federal grant funding, Wayne County DPS is unable to commit to securing grant funding for those projects and also cannot commit to the timeline that has been proposed. So we proposed a timeline of, if we go to the voters at the end of this year, we proposed a timeline to rebuild all our major and primary roads over a 4-year period. So, then there's also a letter dated April 27th, 2015, that I hope you had a chance to read, submitted by the township manager to Wayne County, asking them specifically, stating to them, we need specific approval from you before we can proceed. Approval to do several things. And as we go through each project, I'm going to highlight what that approval is.
What page are you on now?
Well, around page 32.
Okay.
So this letter follows the plan. So what I'd like to do is go through I'm going back to page 29, Ron. I'd like to go through the program now and make sure we're all thinking together on this, because what I want to do is pass a resolution tonight that we would go to the township board. This is my recommendation to you. Go to the township board at hopefully their first meeting in June, so that we can make a presentation to them on television at their meeting, and I would hope that all of you would be able to be there, or most of you, and make a recommendation, because here's a key thing. If we're going to go on the November ballot, I mean, if we are going to, we contacted the bond consultants or bond attorneys. The deadline for submission of anything to go on the November ballot is August 11th of this year. Now back up from there. That means it has to be at the county clerk's office August 11th. Now, if we were to wait till the very last meeting, or the first meeting in August, for the Township Board to make that August deadline, that means all we've got is August and September to explain this to all the community. It'd be nicer if we had 90 days to go to the civic clubs, the neighborhood groups, to publish a document that explains it in 4 pages or less, have newspaper coverage, and be able to really explain it. I think that's what we need to do. That's our challenge, is to get out and have a good campaign. And all of us could participate in that. So I think we need to go to the Township Board in June. Hopefully, they will approve something in July, if they're going to do it, and I hope they will. And that's we're sort of backing into this calendar. One other thing before we start going through this. Whenever we go to the Township Board, I've had an idea here that rather than just me stand up, and I was there last night, perhaps we could involve all of you in a presentation, those of you that are willing to do it and could make it. For example, my thought would be maybe Jim sits on the board. Normally the trustee that is liaison introduces the subject. Perhaps Jim could do the introduction and of the subject. John, you're the vice chair. Maybe you could do the road part of it. Somebody could explain that we've studied this for 2 years. Maybe that would be what you would do. We'll come up with my thought is we come up with a little script, an outline. We explained that we've been studying this for 2 to 3 years. We wanted to go earlier, but it just didn't seem prudent. And now we want to go forward. Somebody would explain the road portion of it. I've already talked to Les, who has been with the water department in the township for 40 years and has been around for 80 years, and he knows this stuff. And he'd be willing to go through the water portion of it and talk about why we need it. Then somebody could help do a wrap-up, and of course, I'd want to say the last few words or something, but at any rate, we'd come up with a script. So I want you to think about that as we go through this, and then we'll come back to that discussion, okay? All right. Let's start on page 29 with the first project. We'll go through these. So what I proposed is that if our bond issue was approved in November of this year, and I've already talked to our engineers, they could have Church Road ready to bid by March.
So we're starting out with Church Road again, eh?
We're talking about Church Road.
Okay.
And as you can see, one thing we've changed is instead of spending $800,000 on storm drains, we've cut that drastically, so we're not going to bond anything for storm drainage. We're going to do minimal storm drainage, make sure it works, and we cut that $400,000 out. But the road to widen it is still $1.4 million. Now, one thing I've done is I've reduced the interest rates on all these. I went from 5% to 4%. And why is the current market, if you were to go for a 10, 12, 15-year bond, you're usually looking below 4% right now in the current market rate. It hasn't changed in years, the last 5, 6, 7 years, and estimating at 5% was conservative. Well, we can't afford to be conservative anymore because we just lost $2.5 million worth of county participation, federal grants, so we have to make that money up. So that was the thinking on that, okay? Mm-hmm. What we need to ask in this letter that went off to the county is when we do Church Road, and this applies to all these, we do not want to have to go through, when you go to the county road division, their engineering staff can approve the road plans. But then they submit it to their permit office, and the permit office looks at all the storm drainage stuff. And I can tell you, any community will tell you what a terrible, terrible situation that poses. I'm aware of projects where they've added hundreds of thousands of dollars of cost. Fact is, our job on West River Road at Westcroft Gardens, the county permit office held us up 7 months. Remember, it was delayed a whole year. And they added, Barry, God love Barry at the time, he threw a fit because they were going to add almost $200,000 worth of cost for us to comply with their permit requirements. They finally backed off. Now, recently, I don't want to bore you, I was talking to an official in Livonia, where they had 2 sections of 7 Mile Road last year. The county wanted to design them both. The city said, we need to get this one going, so let us design it. They farmed it out to a firm, and they did that section. They had it out to bid in 2 months, and the engineering cost was in the range of 12-15%. The section the county did took them 7 months to get it out, and it was 33% engineering cost from the county. So anyway, this whole permit issue to comply with their stormwater regulations is a big deal. We got to get them to say, because they'll delay us and they'll add costs. And we have to say, we want the road division, if we're going to go forward with this, we have a tight budget. That's the point, you understand? All right, so, Church Road, and the other thing we're saying to them, minimal storm drainage, we want to widen it 4 feet. The section from, the letter says, the section from the canal to Meridian, where those beautiful trees are, no trees will be cut, and maybe there we'll only widen it 1 foot, because we don't want to cut those trees down. So that's what we're asking them to do. Now, the township managers told me in the past they've agreed, past administrations have agreed, not to cut any trees down. So that's a big issue with the residents of Church Road, as it should be. So that's Church Road. Are we all still in accord on Church Road?
Yeah.
Next is Meridian. If you go out and drive it, the original plan was to go from Grosse Hill Parkway to Church, was 1.7, 1 3/4 miles length. And it was eligible for federal grant assistance. However, we were told it'll never qualify. So we backed off all the county contribution. We were going to spend $300,000 as our share. Now we're talking about $2 million. But what else we've done is, if you drive the section between Church and Horse Mill, it's very bad. So in other words, we've lengthened the project to 2.5 miles from 1 3/4 miles because it's bad. And we're going to have one shot at it. We'll probably get our best price if we do it all at one time. So in 2016, we would also do Meridian Road. And that's just mill the road and resurface it. Any questions on that? Now, those will be done in 2016, so coming out of the barrel, we'd have 2 significant projects. Then on chip seal, you can see, and we estimated our costs. We could maybe do better than this, but originally we were going to do 15 miles of chip seal. We're down to 12 miles. And we're going to do it twice during the life of this bond issue, 4 years apart, 2016 and 2019. 2 applications, and we figured that it would be $60,000 a mile, which is what we're spending this year. That includes base repair. So that allows us to do some base repair. I'm sorry, Lorinda's got these, she's showing these on the screen as we're going, but we can't see them. You all got a map in your package.
Excuse me, Bill, can you turn the monitors on? Then we should be able to get the same.
Okay, do you know how to do that?
Yeah, ask Mike if he can turn the monitors on.
Okay, so on the chip seal, we would do it both in 2016, and then you have the 4 years from then, 4 seasons later. It looks like 3, but you have 17, 18, and then 19. We would do it again.
Just out of curiosity, Bill, since chip sealing is supposed to be less expensive, why are we doing fewer miles instead of more miles?
Never mind.
To balance the budget. We had to cut back.
Is yours working?
No, that's why.
Is his?
So in other words,
None of them are working?
that's the most logical place to cut the budget?
In my opinion, it's what I had left.
Because, well, I know that the idea was beyond the chip sealing is the fact that you get more bang for your buck, you get more miles for the dollar you're spending. And now we're saying we don't have enough money to do all these things, so we need to back off more from chip sealing. Is that what I understand?
Sort of. Here's what you have to look at, is look at the roads we want to fix.
Right, I know it's churches first and foremost.
Well, look at all the other roads.
Right.
They're all significant, and they're all been reduced.
Right. Okay.
Every one of them's taken a hit, so.
Yeah, and then on Meridian, we increased it from Church to Horse Mills.
We had to.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying, but that's going to be added cost, so we have to back it off somewhere else. We have to make
Okay.
it...
Exactly, yeah.
They're questions, guys, and don't be defensive.
No.
No.
It is a good question. Okay, so 2017, we would do East River Road. And that's been cut back. It would be from Horse Mill to Ferry, which is the worst section right now. It's 2 miles, and we cut that back to 800,000 a mile. And we added in East River between Parkway and Manchester. So there'd be 2 sections done. Now, we don't have this on our monitors, but when you study this, we're talking about Horse Mill to Ferry, and then between Ferry and Parkway, we would chip seal. That's what's going to be chip sealed. Then we would go
What
back.
number are you on, Bill?
Number 4.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's East River Road. So we went from Horse Mill to Ferry, and then at the bottom, we added Parkway to Manchester. So we
Okay.
roughly, we have about 2.5 miles there that would be done.
All right.
Bill? I went out and drove this map today just to see what we'd be talking about and see the roads. And that, from Parkway to Manchester, I just wonder, I mean, it seemed to, is it because it's so bad that we need to resurface that? Because it seemed to be the same as where we pick up the chip seal from Manchester to Elba there, along East River. They seem to be the same to me, so I was just wondering why is that being resurfaced rather than chip sealed?
Well, we thought that, and when I drove it with Sohal, we thought since we're this year going to be able to fix that other section, and we've upped that with extra amount this year, if you remember, an additional $30,000. We just made the decision that there were some spots in it that it's pretty far gone.
Right, yeah.
And that if we get good bid prices, we ought to try to get that
Okay.
done. If we're successful with the chip seal, we were thinking that would be, besides the first section of East River between Horse Mill and Ferry, that would be the next priority.
Okay.
That was simply that. I mean, if you want to change it, we can.
No, I just wondered, driving it, they seemed a lot alike, but I mean,
Well, I think-
I just drove it, I wasn't,
I think they are, and we thought it should be fixed that way.
Okay.
Everybody okay with East River? Number 5 is Ferry Road. It's actually from the canal to East River. And that would just be resurfacing. We were going to widen it a couple of feet. That's expensive. So we cut it down from $1.2 million to $800,000. We ought to be able to resurface it for that price. And we aren't going to widen it. Okay? Everybody on this side okay?
Yes?
Got it, Jim?
Yeah, the problem that we have, it's kind of like the little boy putting his finger in the hole in the dike. We got a lot of bad road out here. Any plan's a good plan. That's the way I look at it. And so, you're kind of splitting the baby in half. So you go, we're not going to chip seal that much. We're going to resurface Ferry Road. We need to put something on paper and move forward on it.
Okay.
And everybody knows where these roads are. So the monitors are insignificant tonight. They're not on, so what? We all know where these roads are. We've driven it a couple of times. I specifically recall getting out of the vehicle and looking at Ferry Road when we were talking about chip sealing stuff. I recognize it's a resurface plan now, but let's roll with it. People know where these are. I don't think Lorenda has to point out where Ferry Road is for me or Les or anybody. Jim Budney, we know where they are.
Well, I think she's pointing it out for the people at
That's
home.
good, that's good. But we don't need it, we know where these
all right.
roads are.
Okay, so that's Ferry. Then we're back to Meridian, the section between Horse Mill and Bridge. It's not that bad, and in order to keep our budget under control, we went up actually from $250,000 to $260,000, and there I envision a mix of some a considerable base repair in a few spots, and then maybe a chip seal, or maybe just a couple inch resurface.
Okay, that was another question I had on my map that you gave us. It looked like it was yellow for chip seal, and then it looked like there was some green, and I didn't know if that...
We're going to have to decide. It's really, if you think about it, it's over 3 years off. We'll have to decide what kind of fix would be appropriate within that budget at that time. Now, we might have better bid prices. We might end up with, we might have worse bid prices, so who knows? Everybody understand that section?
Okay.
Number 7 is West River Road. Now, from our original plan, we've really cut this down. We were once talking about $900,000 a mile. Then we went to $800,000. Then this plan showed $700,000. Now we're down to $600,000, plus take $400,000 from the drain fund. One of the biggest problems with West River is we would resurface it in place. That's the proposal. Mill it in place and resurface it. The big issue is drainage there. And I've been out there with our engineers, and the kind of drainage we're talking about is what we got to do is get the road from the east side to the west side. And that's all we got to do. We can do it by what they call sheet flow over the road surface, or in some cases, you're going to have to put a small pipe under the road and get it all the way to an outlet toward the Trenton Channel. I can tell you right now, if we don't get cooperation from the county, and we have to go to their permit office for this drainage, we'll spend more than that on storm drainage. They'll want to put storm sewers in all over, and we won't be able to afford it. So we have to get their cooperation on this. And my thought on West River is, do we leave it the way it is forever? It's just going to get worse, that section of West River. So this is an approach to do something with it, to get a good surface, and it'll last for 15 years.
And those residents, they're entitled to that.
Any questions on West River? Phil?
Just explain this to me. We've cut from 700,000 a mile to 600, and taking 400,000 from the drain fund, that's going to give us 2.2 million, and we had 2.1. So we've actually, I guess my question is, the money from the drain fund, is that will just be used for the drainage portion of that project? Or is that going to be used for, I'm just unclear on that.
Yeah, the 400 is for the cost of doing the drainage along there.
Okay.
18 what is it, $1.8 million?
So there was no money for drainage originally?
Yes, there was a prior version that we had.
Right.
And it was my recollection, including drainage, it was 900,000 a mile we were going to do.
Okay.
So that would have been 2.7.
Right.
And then in a subsequent version,
Okay.
we cut it down, and then a subsequent version, we cut it down to try to keep within a $9 million
Correct.
road fund program with the grants.
Right.
So
This will actually be money used from the drain fund, not just transferred over to be paid back or anything like that. It's going to be for drainage.
right,
Okay, fine.
that's the idea.
Yeah. Right.
So from what was portrayed in this other thing, I think we were talking purely, we weren't going to take any money from the drain fund.
Correct.
And when we cut the cost of the paving down to 600,000, we're starting to get lean now,
Right.
okay?
Okay. Is it? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just, in talking on this issue, timing is going to be critical as far as getting authorization, of course, or millages, of course. But we're anticipating a huge runway project next year, probably large enough that they'll batch it here. And if we're going to have a batch plant on the island, and we can work some kind of a combination deal with the contractor that gets this deal, if nothing more than to sell asphalt, that we don't have to travel from batch plant to batch plant, it could be a huge savings in dollars.
It could be.
Because it's going to go one way or the other. It's either going to go asphalt or it's going to go concrete. I doubt that it'll go concrete because of the cost of the cost of the concrete. So this will they'll probably have to batch it here, because we're talking 10, 12 inches of asphalt for a 5,000-foot runway. You know. That's a huge amount of asphalt.
Yeah.
So they'll probably batch it here. If there's some way you can talk to the engineers, and when we're going to do our engineer design really quickly now, and it's going out for bids quickly, because this project's going to start, at least part of the tear out, or at least the prep work will start this fall, and the actual runway will go in next summer. That's kind of a fast track it's on. Just something to think about.
Okay, well, that's a good thought. And Phil, another reflection on your question. Originally, we were going to bond 2.1 million for West River. Now we're only going to bond 1.8.
Right.
And we weren't
Yeah, but the
going
amount we're going to bond is down.
we
Right.
weren't going to take the money from the drain fund.
Right.
So we are now. That's,
Can I go all the way back to number one for a question?
yeah, sure.
We talked about maybe narrowing the roads to avoid cutting down trees. In other words, maybe only widen it a foot. If I recall, when Sahil was talking about that, he said that, you have to maintain such a distance from trees, and he had some number, I don't remember what it is at this time. But I went around the island, and we have all sorts of places where there's not that distance in existence. Is it possible we could go within that distance because that was the reason for having to take down the trees, was to maintain that. I mean, I just would like us to consider that when we go forward with this, that maybe we don't have to narrow it.
well, absolutely. And, Phil, it's a legitimate question, and it all depends on what the county
Right.
engineer will say.
Right.
The county, they have standards, and I can't tell you what that is, whether it's 12 feet of clearance or whatever, but, and maybe the counties differ, or maybe they're all the same. But I know in other communities where I worked in my earlier life, we got the county to back off if we were going to improve their road.
Right, right.
And we didn't hold to it either. And so we'll do the best we can. But we don't want to cut that little section of church between the canal and Meridian, where those huge trees are. That'd be a shame to cut those trees
Sure.
down.
Sure.
You know which ones we're talking about.
One other question.
Sure.
To me, in looking at this project, the finance savings is worth a lot. In other words, if you're considering buying something, you don't necessarily just look at the total cost of the cost of the project. You look at the cost of total cost of the money, paying it out over that time. And I didn't do this on a bond calculation because I always forget how to do it, but I'm seeing that in the neighborhood of maybe $850,000 or something in that neighborhood of just savings on that. When the people that are going to be paying for this are going to say, what are my weekly payments? Not so much, what's the total cost of the project? Could we consider, if we see favorable interest rates prevailing, that we might increase the bottom line from 9.8 to 10.3 or something like that?
Well, under Michigan law, once we go to the voters with a bond amount, we can't increase it. And if they approve it for so you're jumping into the next question here. This went up from 9 million to 9.8. And the concern that I had is we've always kept this, when we're at full bond, we're paying on full debt for the water main at 9 million and this at 9 million. We were below 3 mils.
Okay.
And I wanted to keep it that way, thinking that we would have a better chance of saying to people, this is below 3 mils. Riverview asked for 3 mils for 10 years, so it's a pay-as-you-go situation. We have such a large amount of water main, what we're trying to do is avoid putting it on the rates. So we're spreading the water main expense out over 25 years. You can do that, it's no problem.
Well, educate me on this then. When we go and approve, and Ted to chime in, when we go and approve the bond proposal for, let's just say 9.8, and then we have to go search for the money, right? or is that done ahead of time?
Well, we're bondable. I mean,
But I mean, at what rate? I mean,
well, the going rate, and it doesn't fluctuate a lot. I don't know what it is right currently.
okay.
But the last borrowing issue we did, we went to a bank. It was actually better than a bond rate. And that is an option.
But what would determine the millage? The end number? Okay, the end number, after you've got the approval to borrow the money, then you add the cost of the money
The
to it,
principal and interest.
And then that goes and becomes...
Whatever that principal and interest we got to pay a year is. And what I'll tell you is that originally, and I just recalculated this Sunday, at the 4% to see how we would come out. We originally, in the right column, we said the bond costs were going to be $932,000 for, at 5%. Even by going to $9.8 million, it comes in, and I haven't had Ann check me on this, but I think I did it twice, at $920,000.
Okay.
So I'm still staying within that limit.
So you've taken that $800,000 increase in it's, the payment's gone down because of the lower rate.
Yeah.
Okay, so the millage then is based on that $932,000.
Yeah, and it's really an average of the principal and interest spread over that number of years.
I understand.
Now, another part of this in my mind is, if we got the bond approved, it would actually, we'd have two bond sales. We'd probably have one in 2016, when we start the construction, and one in 2018. There's, under the bond law, the way it works is, you have 3 years to spend your money. When you issue a bond, you have to be under contract and spend it within 3 years, or you're in violation of what they call arbitrage.
Okay.
And you need to make sure that you have that money obligated within that 3-year period. We won't have our 2018 projects and 19 projects fully obligated, so we'd probably have one bond sale for for $9-10 million, $11 million, and then another one. So there'd be one bond issue approved by the voters for $18,800,000, and we'd probably have two separate sales in the subsequent years.
Okay.
Now, we don't have the water in front of us, but talking with Sohail, in this schedule, if you go back to Church Road, when Church and Meridian, he already has the water main designed for Church Road. We had a prior authorization to do that. So the Church Road water main could go in the spring of 2016, followed by the paving. There's no water main, there might be some section on Meridian, I'd have to go check that. But the primary water main are on East River and West River. So we make sure we get those in so that we could put those water main in the ground in the spring of each year, winter and spring, and then followed by the paving. So, so that's, and Mr. Pilkington, you just came in, and we've had this discussion going. I don't know if you saw it on TV or not.
I was late at my office.
Yeah, that's okay. So we're way into a discussion on our road program, and give you a chance to speak on it in a minute, if you want to. So what we're looking at then is, we've gone through the program. It's $9.8 million for roads. And there's a map that shows all the roads that would be paved. I think the green indicates that would be rebuilt, resurfaced, and the yellow indicates all the roads that would be resurfaced with a chip seal, fine stone and an asphalt base. You can look at that. So anyway, we didn't change the water part of this. It's still the way we had recommended it to go forward.
They come out with any kind of a potential start date for this project?
Well, the chip seal you're talking about.
Whatever, this went first.
This program that we just went through?
Our whole road project, when is this now scheduled to begin with the contractor?
Well, you're talking about the chip seal. Yeah. This sheet right here. They're going to start to do the milling
All right, okay.
May 14th and
That's
15th.
separate.
This is
That's separate from this.
Yeah.
Okay,
We were going to get to that
okay.
before the end of the meeting. So at any rate, that's where we are with the road program. So again, important to me is that if we go forward, I'd like to go forward to the Township Board at one of the meetings in June, make a presentation. Would anybody be willing to help in the delivery of the program? John, would you, as Vice Chair?
I'm not sure right now.
Okay,
It's based on schedule.
all right. Who's going to be around in June?
What's the specific date in June? My son's getting married.
Is it June 8th? Is it June 8th?
That was
Yes, June 8th is Township Board, June 9th is DPS.
So June 8th is the night. Now, that's one option. I know the township doesn't have a meeting for a month, but we're talking about a half hour or so kickoff on television to explain it. What we need are 90 days, 3 months to explain it to the public. And I'm going to ask for a motion on this in a minute, but my thought on our public information campaign is we would hold a public hearing on it in this room at every one of our meetings. We'd start off with a public hearing, we'll advertise it, we're going to have an explanation on it every one of our meetings in July, August, and September, and October. We'd go to every civic club on the island that we can think of. If there's any, I would personally make a commitment to go to every one of our township commissions, whether it's the Planning Commission, ZBA, Parks Commission, explaining to all them, and get to every group we can and explain it. We would go to the newspapers and try to get this map published, the map of both of them, with an explanation. We may have, maybe Lena will do an insert, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to pay for it. And I'd also like to do a mailer, a 4-page mailer that shows these maps of the water main and road improvements and what it's going to cost people so that everybody understands. And we explain it, and we give it to them, and if it's a lot of money, but it's what other communities are doing, and if we want the island to be improved, we've got to move something forward. We just can't sit on our hands. And certainly we all know, we've talked about this for 3 years now, that the county is not going to step up to do this. So.
And that's the key. I mean, they're not, and we have to do something, or our roads are just going to deteriorate more. And Bill, I'll be more than happy to go with you to all those places and, get the word out. Because that's going to be the key, that having the taxpayers understand what they're voting on and why it has to be the way it is. It's super important, and all too often, I think, things, whether it's a school millage or whether it's, something we do here at the township, the residents don't get educated enough to understand what they're voting on.
Jim?
Well, last night at the Township Board meeting, Brandy was here and made a proposal in reference to the splash park. And there were some numbers that she gave out in reference to the population of Groesville. Currently, 10,400 residents. I don't know how many registered voters, and of course, some of those are kids, but 2,975, almost 3,000 of those 10,400 were senior citizens. And we got to go after that really, really hard, because they vote.
Well, we would speak to the seniors every chance we get.
Most of us on this board are all seniors.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion. We have a citizen that's come in, Craig Pilkington. We talked a little bit about this last night at the Township Board meeting. Before we pass a motion on approving our plan, you're welcome to come up and speak if you'd like. Maybe you'll influence somebody here.
Good evening. Craig Pilkington at South Point. I don't think I'm going to influence anybody, but I really am only going to echo, I think, some of the comments that I've already heard in the brief time I've been here. And I was at the board meeting last night as well. Last week, a school millage went down. School millages never go down on Groesville, ever. but the message was not clear, and the message of value to our taxpayers was not clear. And it went down, I think, based on our senior vote, because they didn't see the value in it. Our roads are so critical, and I think beyond explaining why it's necessary, you need to explain to, especially our seniors, 55 and beyond, the impact that it's going to have on their personal assets, on the marketability, on the saleability, on the attractiveness, on the willingness of somebody to pay market price for their home. Okay, because if you're driving down West River Road, if you're driving down some of these other roads, it doesn't matter how beautiful your home is. If you're losing a tire and testing, your suspension on the way, the perceived value is going to drop off markedly. And our folks need to understand this. We're back down to, I think, core interests here. And that is our roads, our schools. These are both absolutely necessary to maintain value and desirability of life on Ambrosio. And some of the other discretionary expenses, I think we need to pare back. I think that the board needs to take a leadership role in doing that and saying we need to get back to core. What you're doing is of paramount import in my mind. I will help you in any way possible in getting the word out, and you have to do it face to face. This was one of the failures in the schools. They presumed far too much in delivering a message of value and telling people how it's going to impact them personally. So
Thank you.
I'm all for this. It's very necessary. I'll support in any way that I can.
Thank you, and I'd like you to, I wanted to make sure we get your address before you leave, because when we get the plan redone, we're amending it, and send it to the township board, I want to mail you a copy of it.
So that you know too, I get a lot of comments on the Facebook page I run and whatnot, and even comments today in emails that were not on Facebook. And many comments say, look, this is all well and good. This all sounds great, but I sure would like to get my roads fixed. And that's no joke. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
Bill, here's an important fact too. We put together what the material is. It's going to be prospective and positive. It has to be carefully looked at with realities and truism in a plain type of explanation. And the reason is, recently, if I look at the state road proposal that went down, we saw the ads on television about how this new road was going to create jobs in Michigan. I never bought that. The two things don't dovetail together. I'm familiar with millages, not township millages, but school millages years ago where proposal A was advocated and then the plan changed after the vote. So when we do our bit here, it needs to be forward-thinking, accurate, and it has to have plain meaning. For instance, we don't need to manufacture. One time I heard an explanation that Church Road is dangerous for the school buses. That's not true. We'd have to take Church Road off of the school bus routes if that were the case. And the trees, we're going to do our best to save the trees. But I personally used to run that section of Church Road probably 100 times a year for over 10 years. So I'm familiar with where those trees are and how tight they are and how the shoulders are. We can save the trees as long as we can, but someday those trees are going to reach their maximum life expectancy and they're going to die. If the ants don't get them, the storms will someday. So we're only human, and I think we ought to address things in that regard, so that if we say we're going to do 1 through 7 or 8, then we do them. We try to do them. And if there's an impossibility of performance at some juncture, whatever reason that is, then we need to be honest and sincere when we look at whatever could be an impossibility. I have no idea what that might be right now, but we have to recognize that too. And if we stay the course, I think the voters will certainly appreciate that.
Well, I agree, it has to be clear. All right, so, are we ready for a motion? Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion to approve the revised road plan and to include in that motion to submit our whole plan again, update it, and submit it to the Township Board by their first meeting in June.
So moved.
I will second it.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. We've been discussing this. Are there any further comments? If not, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
So the minutes will reflect unanimous approval. I vote, chair votes yes as well. So thank you on that. Now, back to the issue. How many people think that they might be willing to participate in, and we have a rehearsal on this. Go ahead and do it, Rick. This side of the table, you're not sure, John, if you're going to be in town?
That's right.
I'm not going to be here that weekend.
Are you not gonna be here?
I'll be gone through that Monday. It should be back by
We
Tuesday.
have to change the wedding.
Unless
you're willing, right? Ted, you're going to be around.
I'll be here.
Are you going to be in it?
I mean, there's a possibility I could be, but I...
So everybody likes the idea of letting others participate in the message.
I mean, afterwards, I'd be
Okay.
certainly...
Okay. And we won't overdo it, but there'll be some joint participation. That's great. Thank you. All right. Back to our agenda.
Yeah. Yeah, it was unanimous.
Couple of quick reports from Lorinda. Pressure reducing valve update.
Okay,
Did you vote on that last motion?
yeah, they did, it was unanimous.
I'll make up here in a minute.
The chair, the chair voted yes.
Yep,
It
the
was
chair voted
unanimous,
yes,
I
it was
said.
unanimous.
Okay.
Okay, update on the PRVs. DTE finally finished setting the pole, and they were pulling the wire that was on last Thursday. And so Clark was cleared to come in and complete the work. So they've set up delivery with Matt to deliver the crane and the chamber on Thursday this week. So they're shooting to set the structure in later on this week. So after that, they'll be completing the piping, and then once that is done, Rotor Electric can come back in and complete the electrical. So that's where we're at right
It's finally
now.
moving along.
Yeah, finally.
Very good.
So, the next update will be on the Stout drainage consideration. I received an email from Russ last week when they went out to take a look at it. He says the ditches and culverts were originally installed in about 1990 or so. And he said they were functioning per their design, but there have been grading changes that have occurred, over time. So he says they will need to perform a preliminary survey to check the current ditch grading and the culvert locations in that area, and then once they have the existing grades, they'll be able to evaluate the conditions to determine the solution to improve it. So they'll be able to draw a sketch showing their recommendations. So they've estimated that this preliminary survey work and the solution sketch to be around $2,900.
Well, that price is a not-to-exceed price. So our motion should say not to exceed that amount. Has anybody had a chance to go look at that?
I have.
Okay. And I have, and Les and I looked at it this morning. I would tell you that I went up there after the rains about 10 days ago, the next day, and I didn't see any flooding. Now, all the ditches were full, which they should be. A lot of side yards were full of water. Everybody else's were on my street as well. But I paid attention mostly to the north side of the road, where the problems are really on the south side. And Les and I were up there this morning, and I have the addresses, Lorinda, to give you, but
Oh, okay.
there are 11 homes where the driveways are almost ruined because the culverts are so low, and this winter, they've heaved concrete slabs where there are 3-inch differentials in them, and it's a serious problem. So, and you have photographs from the spring thaw when everything was underwater.
Yeah.
So it is a serious problem, and I'm convinced we have to do something about it. It's pretty untenable. So I would entertain a motion to authorize our township engineers to do the necessary survey work to get the grades and try to determine what the outlet should be and what elevations, what corrective action needs to be taken. So the motion would be to authorize the engineer to spend not to exceed $2,900 to look at this flooding problem on Stout Road.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion?
I
Hearing
got
none.
one question.
Yep.
If there's a problem with that drainage up there and the ditches are screwed up, why won't the county come and look at that and take care of it? Or have they already?
Lorinda?
Good question, Les. I proposed that same question to the county, and the response was from Bob Conrad that they had not had any complaints on it in the last couple of years. So the cost factor to come in to try and reset them doesn't offset, it doesn't pay them to come out here to do it, basically, to fix it the right way, because they haven't had any complaints.
We know that's a lie. I can give you 2 residents that have been to the county, in front of the board, in front of the commission, on multiple occasions over the last 2 years. And they came to us just short of going to an attorney about it.
Well, Bill and I were up there today and looked at it, and I was amazed at how many of the culverts had been heaved with a frost.
Sure.
And the county usually comes out and clean the ditches,
Yeah.
but
They're not going to do anything. That's why they came to me. I came to you at the last meeting. I think we should address it. These are residents.
Well, once we know what the solution would be, we could always ask them to cooperate financially with us, because they won't even look at it to see what the solution is.
And I have another idea too, which is the county can turn a blind eye to any verbal request. So what I think in a situation like Stout that's so bad, that be videoed, put on discs. One of those discs should be hand-delivered to the county representative that lives out here on Roseal, and another disc should be sent to probably Mr. Evans and some other people in the county, saying, this really is a county problem. We're trying to take care of our other problems that you can't take care of. You can't take care of this one. And if you send a few discs around, they can step on them and crack them and everything else, but I bet somebody will look at those discs.
Well,
And that's the way to present a visual explanation of a very bad situation. And we don't do that. We do some phone calls and we talk to some people, and then we can't do anything and a blind eye happens, and then we get nowhere. So, Les was down there looking at it with you today. I mean, it's bad. The people aren't being served properly. As far as I know, they're paying their county taxes. I think they are.
well, and what happened with the situation of Loma Circle last year at West River is we came up with the analysis and what the plan should be to fix it. And the county was supposed to, we went to them and had a couple of meetings and asked them if they would share the cost with us. And the only thing the county did is they did some tree removal for us, and they didn't require that we put a new outlet underneath West River out to the Trenton Channel, which would have been $20,000. So we solved the problem by getting them to cooperate, and they did a little. Here, we need to find out what the problem is. Nobody seems to know. I thought Les would know, since he's been around 40 years here. Right, Les?
40 to 80.
Or 80, whatever. And,
Over 100 and done.
but nobody seems to really know the story, where the outlets are and how it's going to drain, so we need to do that analysis. So anyway.
Hey, Bill, like John said, if they videotape that,
Well, we should get proper,
I know that Rains has that capability of doing that, because whenever we start a water main project, they would drive down the road and videotape it. And then after the project was done, they'd videotape it again, and they'd watch the two of them together and see what was screwed up and wasn't screwed up.
we'd like to ask you if you'll ask Rains if they can videotape.
Sure.
Now, I have the addresses, and I counted it for the meeting tonight. There's 11 homes that are affected by this.
Well, they're surveying.
Not just the drain, I mean, I'm just talking about with driveways,
Just the
driveway
condition,
approaches
yeah.
that are all destroyed.
Bill, just one more comment on that. So Ohio pulled the original plans for that from the county? He knows what needs to be done? I'm sure he hasn't done an estimate yet, that's probably what he's talking about doing. But he knows what the problem is, because I was over there with him, we rode this thing. So it's not a question is it right or not, it is not. We know that it isn't draining to where it needs to drain going west. And I think Sohia has all that information.
And one question I have on that is, did the county do that
Yes,
20 years ago?
yes, it's a county drain. In fact, they claim in the letter that they sent, or the email they sent to Lorinda, that they had gone out and made repairs and have had no problem since. Well, the repairs they made, they cleaned the ditch going to the east. Well, it doesn't drain that way. Problem is to the west.
All right, so we'll pull everything we can together on it, I guess, and see if we can do the videotape.
Yeah, it's gotta go that way.
Certainly we'll take some photographs, John, of the drive approaches.
Now, stills are one thing, but the video is way better, and it can be reduced to a disc, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so that'd squeak a lot louder than what we have.
All right. And then finally, the homes that are affected, I would like, and I'll work with Lorinda on this, I'd like to ask Lorinda to send a letter out, a couple paragraph letter, letting everybody know that we are starting to do an engineering analysis, because several of those drives are heaved, and what I would hate to do is have people on their own go and fix the drive, and then we come along and say, well, the culvert has to be set at a lower grade, and you gotta tear the drive up. It's sort of like double jeopardy then. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that won't make them happy.
So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Don't forget to mention that cross tie that's in Stout, close to East River Road, that's a speed bump. The frost has heaved that up. When we drove over that today,
Yeah, so
that's
John,
been
you're
like
aware of
that
that.
for years.
What's that?
There's two.
Well, there's one that's bad.
Oh, yeah. The first one he's referring to.
That one's bad, and that's a separate issue, but I guess if we're gonna do any work up there, we ought to fix that too.
Well, the county should repair that because that's in their road and the frost has heaved it.
It's gotta be pretty shallow too. All right,
Yeah.
all right, so, we have a motion on the floor to authorize the engineers to spend and do the survey work for a price not to exceed $2,900. Any further discussion, questions? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're on our way with that. Next item is Joe Keefe from our wastewater treatment plant. Joe, you want to make a presentation to us? And before you start, Linda, you have the map up on, can people see the screen, or are they just looking at the map on TV?
They're just looking at the map right now.
Would you take it down, please? Well, what are they looking at now, the seal?
Yes.
Aren't they able to see Joe?
They'll see Joe.
Oh, okay.
We won't see Joe. Yeah,
Okay, all right, I'm sorry, okay.
that's okay.
So what's on the screen at home is not the seal?
Right, they see him,
Okay, very good. Go ahead, Joe.
or you.
Yeah, I just want to bring us up, we've had some issues lately with incoming power from Detroit Edison, and we don't have any power monitoring. We did at one time when the electrical was upgraded in 2005, but that monitor blew out and was turned out, when we changed out the automatic transfer switch a couple of years ago, or last year, it was removed because it was no longer functioning. But it's not in the capital improvements plan, but I'd like to consider if I can go forward and get some estimates on putting in a power monitoring system. With all our variable frequency drives and things that are real energy sensitive, these things get knocked out either with an over voltage or an under voltage. And the only thing, I have no historical evidence I can say, hey, Detroit Edison, you spiked our voltage at 525 volts, and by contract, they have to keep it 506, well, 460 plus or minus 10%. So, and it does run high. Every time you go in and you can read the voltage, incoming voltage at that time, and it's running usually about 500 volts.
Joe, do you have a guess as to what the monitoring system would cost?
Probably in the range of $5,000 to $10,000.
Okay. I've heard enough.
Yeah, it's not a huge expense, but I think it would save on equipment. And we just, had a big issue last week that happened right before all the rain came, and we were spinning our wheels trying to keep up with everything when that was going on.
Well, you started talking about a power monitoring, and I was envisioning something that just monitored and let you know what was coming in. Are you saying that this would also either...
It would record historical data.
No, would it affect the power in some way, like our pressure reducing valve that we're talking about?
Was it a surge protector?
No, this would be just a monitor. We could ask about power conditioning, but I think then you're starting to get into real money, because we've got 460 volt power, and it's actually being reduced down from 13.6 at the street. So that kind of conditioning might cost, I have no idea what it would run. But I did look into the power monitoring. We actually have one of the residents here works for a power company, and he has loaned us for a week. We're actually monitoring our power since last Friday, and he'll pull it this Friday, but we'll at least have a week's worth of data of and there has been episodes where our one raw sewage pump gets knocked out on an earth fault at 6 a.m. every morning. And these things happen right at the same time, so we know it's like an Edison switching issue.
What do you, if you monitor it, what do you say to Edison?
Oh, then you have the evidence to back up, and they are cooperative. When we've done this in the past, when we had that other monitor, when it was working, we were able to take that and show them, hey, our power was at 525 volts, and you knocked out, I don't remember what it was, but then it was some switching thing that they were doing up West River Road by ferry, and they switched some capacitors around up there, and that brought the power back down. So they do cooperate, but we're going into this blind. We don't know what's going on. And if we had a monitor so we could talk to them and say, oh, you're either overfeeding the voltage or you're underfeeding, that's what we're trying to get at.
Joe, will those results after Friday give you an indication of something that could be run during this first week that they're working?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if they give us a big zap in power and it burns stuff up, are they going to be responsible for it?
That would be tougher, but if we had...
But if you had the monitor...
Well, we're not getting stuff so much burning out. What we're getting is stuff tripping out, and then we don't discover it until the morning, because these power interruptions are so short, our alarm doesn't pick it up.
So we're not losing equipment. It's just turning it off, knocking it out. It's knocking it out, not functioning properly, and which obviously leads to problems.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, Joe, because a week ago Saturday, I was sitting there watching television, and it went blip, and half the digital clocks in my house clicked off, the other half didn't. So it was just enough to go blip, and that was it. Well, that's probably what's happening there.
Yeah, it's something really quick and not tripping, like a power outage, we get an alarm if it lasts for more than 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Even Wednesday morning going into work, as I was pulling in the drive, I saw the lights in the lab flash. And I came in, I said to the guys, did you see the lights flicker? And the pump got knocked out, and some of the RBCs got knocked out. Those that were running, because we actually had a bunch out from the day before from whatever happened at 8 p.m. on Monday night last week. We don't know.
Yeah.
We just came in at 7 the next day and found all the RBCs out, and we had to actually rebalance them all by hand, and it took us 2 days to get them all back up and running. So I just want to get the feel for this. If I came back and said, we've got, this will help us monitor the problem, it'd be like $7,000. Would you guys authorize or make a motion to the board to approve it? I mean, it's not something I had in the budget or even gave a lot of thought of until the problems we've had in the last 2 weeks.
Would it make sense to see if we can get a better indication after this week? In other words, is this just a little bit premature? They're not trying to put too much faith in the results of this 1 week experiment.
I wouldn't put too much faith into the results of this one thing, and the conditions changed. The high voltage has come back from, a few years ago when Edison did correct that. And there's nobody on our end that's monitoring it.
Just a question, how much would it cost to rent this device for a month or two? Just to see if we have a problem.
I'd have to ask.
Why don't you do that?
I'll ask.
And then you're coming back with some hard data. I'm sure nobody on this commission would deny the fact that if you say it's necessary, we're going to agree to it.
Okay.
But if we had some little harder data on that?
Yeah, well, it's, all, like I said, happened last week.
Tell them the rate we paid for the last week was a great one. See if we let us have it for 2 months.
All right, so Ted just said it, but would the sense then be, I don't think anybody would oppose you getting prices for it.
I'll get prices,
But-
I'll come back, I'll have the data for the week, and I'll also get a rental. I'm sure this
They give us some hard data.
resident
So
will,
you could begin the price search simultaneous with looking at, you can lease something, and you can come back to us, we meet every month,
yeah,
and we can then take a look at it when you get the data.
yeah.
Okay?
I'll come back with all that for you next
Is
month.
that sort of the sense of the committee? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, might as well plan at the next meeting to give us results of this 1 week experiment.
Oh, yeah, I'll have that in the packet.
Before you leave the podium, about 10 days ago, we had a significant rainfall. What was the situation at our wastewater plant in terms of any discharges? or whatever?
Yes, we had,
10 days ago.
This was last Wednesday, well, it was Tuesday night rain, we got called in about midnight. For the high wet well, the basin started filling at midnight, we had 1.1 inches of rain. All 4 pumps at the basin were pumping at the same time. That a lot of the rain fell probably like 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., the bulk of that rain fell. So we ended up discharging about 3.6 million gallons to the river. And we started bringing back Friday, draining the basin back to the plant, and it's still probably got a couple more days to go.
Okay. And you haven't had anything with the last couple days? We haven't had.
No, we haven't, very insignificant.
There was parts of the island that got a lot more rain than that.
Yeah. Last week, yeah, and I guess there was a pretty good downpour here yesterday. The flow is up quite a bit today at the plant. So,
Okay.
all right?
Any other questions for Joe? Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
All right, so next item is the chairman's report. I've talked enough tonight. I don't have a report. We'll go around the room. Ted?
I'll just get on my soapbox for a minute. for the privilege of being Wayne County residents. Last year, we paid them $11.7 million in taxes for goods and services rendered. Plus, on top of that, we also paid them $133,000 in fees, which would include the snow plowing. So when we start complaining about what we get in return from Wayne County, we're justified, because our tax base here being as high as it is, we are a very substantial contributor percentage-wise to Wayne County.
Right.
And when we complain, or when I complain particularly, and I seem to do that a lot, it's because we need to get some return on that investment. And I don't feel that we're doing that right now. $11.7 million is a lot of money from this community, just this community. Wow.
So that's $11,700,000. And then the fees, again, there's a little distraction here. I didn't hear the fee amount.
$133,000.
$133,000 in fees,
Well, that's
including
fees,
the snow plowing.
and that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
You know, Ted, I think this is good data, and you said to me that you could access some records at Wayne County to see what the average might be, whatever you're going to measure it by, either per capita,
Well, if you want to do it
per household, or per household.
I think we can do it. I think it'd be easy to do by community. Per capita might be a little bit different. I'll try to run the data numbers on it.
And it would be interesting if you could figure that out as some way that would demonstrate just how much we're contributing based on our little island community, because we sort of get shunned and pushed off.
Right, well, we do. That's been my complaint right along.
And I think that it'd be interesting if you could put it in some kind of a one-page memo so that we could throw it at them when we try to negotiate for cooperation on some of these things. And that would help Mr. Palomero, I would think, be persuasive with some of the bureaucracy there.
One would think.
Okay?
Okay, I'm
That'd be good. So, all right, thanks. Good thought. Les?
Our tapping fees, what's happened on that?
Not a thing.
Well, the minutes reflect we formed a
We said we were
committee.
gonna form a committee and that we were to get
And
together.
you need to convene the committee. So you're on the committee, I'm on the committee, Jim Budney's on the committee. The minutes
Okay.
reflect that.
Did you hear any more from any other communities on their tapping fees?
No others.
Okay.
You probably have to get to that, right? You're going to gather more additional
Yes.
information?
Yes.
Right.
Now, the other thing is, like Ted said, and this has always been a sliver underneath my fingernail, the snowplow money to the county. We didn't get very much service out of them this year. That's all.
Get Wayne County.
I can't judge whether we have more or less than everybody else, I don't know. Well,
But how many other communities are paying them?
Well, the research we did last year, nobody.
Yeah, we're just a bunch of fools.
Well, it was a deal that was cut before we were all involved in this.
I remember when it started, because I was on the road committee when it started.
Maybe we just quit paying it.
I'll second that.
That's a board decision.
That's a board decision.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of considerations.
Mr. Budney?
They will punish.
I heard you.
They will
Yeah,
punish.
one way to simplify it would be, and I'd be glad to do it this month, we'll work with Lorinda, we pull the old records. I'll send a letter to the county, whoever sent us the letter, and ask them to tell us, share with us how many other communities contribute. We can do that. Let's make a point of doing that. Next week, we'll send a letter, Lorinda. Just make a note.
We need to be very sure we're prepared for the consequences of that action.
Right.
That's all I'm going to say.
Well, all we're doing is inquiring.
No, I mean, if we decide to stop paying them,
Yeah.
we better be ready.
Yeah, but Ted, they don't give us priority service.
Well,
That's what was,
this may be priority service license.
Yeah.
It may be 10 days.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with, I'm not happy with the way they do it, but we don't even know what they consider priority service.
Should I find that out?
The fact that we even see when there's snow plows might be priority service, for all I know.
And I'm going to guess that anybody at the county, there's no memory, no history there anyway.
Not anymore. You're right. You're right.
What we're talking about, Craig, is we pay about $33,000 a year for priority icing, de-icing on our school bus routes and all that, and that started many, many years ago. And I'm going to let you speak before.
Just pose a question.
Well, you-
1.7 million, does that include the 3.25 plus mils for the Wayne County Community College District?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It does.
Okay.
Do we have any count on the number of residents from Roseal that,
It's really small. I can get you that number. I don't have it handy.
I think it's very...
Well, if we're going to carry on the conversation, you need to come up to the podium. But I'm going to let you come speak as the only citizen that's here, so, before we adjourn. Okay.
Along with what Les said, I think the Trenton Tribune had an article about Wayne County's policies for, I believe, for snowplowing. Do you remember, Les?
Oh, yeah.
There was something that was in print, I'm not sure where it was from, I probably read it within the last, probably 3 months, 4 months. And if we can call up that particular article, it supposedly proposed their priority system, and I do recall the townships were rock bottom on the bottom. And if that published information is accurate, I think Les and I can try and follow up on that and try and get that, and I'd like to then share that with you, and I just can't recall the specifics, other than the townships were rock bottom.
Well, I remember when I showed you that, and your reply was, "We are lower than a snake's belly in a wagon wheel rut."
All right, well,
I probably did say that.
very good. All right, so, if you can find it, that'd be great. Phil?
I just have one question, Lorinda or John. I've noticed red markings on the roads. Is this where the chip seal, is this in preparatory for the chip seal repairs?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And, we forgot to discuss that, too. Glad you brought it up.
Okay.
Lorinda had put out the chip seal schedule for everybody to have a copy of it. We just got it this afternoon. And as I said, I don't know if you missed the comment, they'd given us one last week, but they were going to start the chip seal the week of Island Fest. And we didn't think that would be, it'd be right out in front here and with trucking and so forth, that wouldn't be good. But basically, the actual milling and repair of bad spots will be done this week, and I assume next. And then the overband repairs, which is an asphalt layer in the areas to be repaired, would go in next week, they're talking about. And they're going to let that sit and do the double chip seal the last 2 weeks of June. The covered so-called fog seal over that the first week of July, with pavement markings back in by the 15th. And they're supposed to be completed by July 15th, so everybody's got that. I think, and I'll work with Lorinda on this, we sent a letter out before the chip seal starts. We'll get a letter out in the next couple of weeks explaining to all the residents that front, we have a list of some 700
I don't remember the count.
addresses or
There's
400.
about- Yeah.
We had a hearing here to explain how the chip seal works to everybody whose property's front on it. I think we had 12 people here. We sent out like 400 invites. We had 12 people here. But we'll pull out the old notices and we'll do that, keep people informed.
Bill, that was a good turnout. What? Okay, Jim, am I correct?
You are absolutely
You see 12
correct.
people in this township interested about anything that we're dealing with, not just us, township board. 12 people, wow. That's a big
Okay, all
turnout.
right, I'll buy it. John, you're next.
The one thing that I did think about was I mentioned it before tonight, the Trenton Tribune is a free newspaper, it's published once a month. There's some pretty good information in there about downriver activities. And they hand those out at the businesses over in Trenton. So you might want to pick up a free copy sometime and take a look at it. It'll have a lot of general information that pertains to many activities in the downriver area, not just in Trenton. And that's it, nothing further, Bill.
It's hard to believe that there'd be something that would have more than the eel camera in it. All right, anyway.
Oh, I wasn't comparing anything at all. I'm just saying you may find it interesting to start looking at the Trenton Tribune.
All right, Jim Budney, anything?
Nothing, sir.
Ron Wilder?
Looking at this schedule, this is going to come upon us real quickly, and we're talking about day after tomorrow, they're going to start working on the roads. And I think it can't emphasize enough what Bill was saying, the fact that one-on-one, person-to-person, in front of groups is going to make all the difference. You can't assume. And that's got to happen, and I would be more than willing to help, and depending on the schedule, of course. But I think everybody needs to kind of step up to the plate and talk to as many community groups and everything else as they can, and especially now that they're going to actually start seeing some activity. I got a little rub in my face last year when I told the guys that, no, what's happening to the roads, so we're starting to put chip seal down this summer. Hey, well, there was all this about, you don't know what's going on, so.
Yeah.
When they actually get to see it going, and I think the majority of the people on this island are going to step up real quick. But we've got to get the word out. Enough.
It's a good point, Ron, and we did get rained off last year. I mean, we need good weather to do this chip seal. And the contractor, because of the county held us up, we got an approval of our chip seal specs. We didn't get to award the contract until July. Contractors were all booked, and came Labor Day and they were done. I mean, they were done applying chip seal because it got too cold at night. So, at any rate.
These are all early at least, Bill, in the year.
Yep.
That's good.
All right, Mr. Nelson.
I have one question. The current work that is started, that is coming out of the 600,000 for 2015, is that correct?
Out of the 600,000?
That we got from the county?
Oh.
From Mr. Ficano?
The contract for the concrete repairs?
And
The neighborhood initiative?
and what about what's on Grove Road, the pink, is that part of that 600,000 too?
No.
The chip seal,
That's the chip sealing.
That's for the chip sealing.
Yeah, for the repairs.
But that's out of the 600,000 for
No,
2015?
we're going to use the chip seal to match the county program.
Yeah.
Chip seal's going to be our match.
Yeah,
I'm confused as to your question.
they gave us 500,000.
Right.
And we 20% match to get to 600,000, correct?
Right,
So that's what we're using to do this?
yes.
Okay. Do we have any word on 2016, if we're going to get it again or not?
Well, our engineers have been told yes.
Yeah, they've been told it's budgeted.
The money, the county's holding it, but it's so-called Act 51 money. It's gas and weight tax money that can't be spent on anything else.
Good.
Now, they could spend it on a major road improvement someplace, but they've committed that they're going to give it to the townships in Wayne County. And our allocation is $500,000 this year and $500,000 next year. That's for neighborhood road improvements. We've already awarded a contract for over $400,000 for concrete repairs in our neighborhood streets. And that's been awarded by the Township Board.
Good.
Thank you.
And on that, much of our work is, well over a fourth of it is on Gray's Drive by the high school. So we asked the contractor not to start till school's over.
After school.
All right, now, we're all done, and we do have a citizen in the audience. Is there anything you'd like to
Dust control.
speak to or add?
I know, he didn't ask anything.
We're glad to have a citizen here.
Did you pay your water bill?
Just, again, in line with what you were talking about, and I think you've talked with Brian Pollock, and if you're going through these road improvements, I'll certainly hope that you will incorporate, and I think this was brought up last night, the spirit of the Complete Streets program. I think you really add value in doing that. If you're not familiar with it, please look into it, because it accounts for accommodations for non-vehicular traffic that really does make a community more attractive. I think you'd find a wonderful ally in BPAC. and the folks that are on the bike path or the pedestrian advisory commission. Brian Pollock, if you do not know him, works for SEMCOG, does audits, community audits, and could certainly speak to the kind of value that I think these programs in total would bring in conjunction with the road improvements. Plus, they get out to, I think, a different demographic. Certainly get out to the schools, to parents and whatnot. And I think you made a good point on the Trenton Trib. They're nice folks over there. They're good folks that actually have been looking for a couple of years, I think, to be invited a little more into the Groseal community. I'm not sure that they have been well received because we're so reliant on traditional channels, and you have to make use of all the channels that are available to you to get this word out to the public. Another thing is, almost nobody knows when your meetings are being held. Now, I don't know whether anybody's watching it tonight. I put it out on a couple of Facebook pages today. The township has a Facebook page. You should be putting it out there that you've got the DPS meeting is tonight. You should be putting it on the website.
It's on the website.
On the main page of the website.
It's on the main page on the calendar.
Oh, I know, it's on the calendar.
Yeah.
But I mean a banner, something that actually draws attention to it, that people will say, oh, good, maybe I'll watch that. And maybe even something for one of the PowerPoint slides that goes across, in case anybody is watching GEI TV and they would see that the DPS Commission is coming up. So it'll draw attention to your meeting. So you have a very well-run meeting. It's always good input from you folks. You obviously know what you're doing, and I think people would find it of interest. So, again, that's my 2 cents.
No, and thank you. I think you raised a good point about the Tribune, as it's called. I read it in the barbershop, and it is very informative. Much more so than other local papers. And so I appreciate you coming to our meeting. So,
thanks, gentlemen.
thank you.
Have anybody heard anything about Groseal Parkway in West Jefferson?
Last I heard, about June 15th, where they were supposed to start.
Okay.
What are we talking about?
Some trucks down
The re-
there today doing something, I don't know what they're doing.
Well, I have, I think in my office, the schedule for all their improvements this summer. And what I saw, Lorinda, is it's scheduled to start July 15th.
Oh, now it's July
That's to
15th?
resurface Jefferson from
Well, they pushed it back a month.
From Van Horn to
Slocum.
Yeah,
And it
it
didn't
was,
say anything about Parkway.
Yeah, I thought, I thought it
It
was going to
was-
be done by July 15th.
it was to be completed by July 15th, yes.
Well,
That was the last
not the
one I heard.
document I have.
Yeah.
I have their
Okay.
construction schedule,
Mm-hmm.
and
And you had,
maybe they delayed it, the document
Yeah.
I've got, but it starts July 15th.
Okay.
Wow.
But it doesn't
it's
say about
this,
Parkway.
but it's this summer.
And I don't know, because
And they didn't
once
include Parkway this time on it?
once they had Parkway included in it, but the
Yeah.
document I saw this year, that some of our engineers got, did not display Parkway. Now, maybe it's in there, I don't know.
They cut out a slab today and put a new concrete, I don't know, maybe 12 feet long when I drove past there.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was a real bad spot, but are you going to do that and then in 2 months tear it right back out?
They might.
I told my wife.
One department might have done it, another department.
Rip it
Was
all
that
off.
Wayne County?
Yeah.
Maybe you're asking that question?
Just had to put it out there.
All right, let's see, is there any more positive influence here? Yeah, really
Yep.
good.
Just to give you a few updates, last week we replaced 49 feet of the 8-inch water main on Meridian at Groseal Parkway. There was a leak under that pavement. We were unable to pinpoint it, so we made the decision to go ahead and replace the whole 49 feet. As you can see, a couple years ago, we made a repair, excuse me, that same location. At the time, we didn't go ahead and go all the way to the valve. This time we did. So we eliminated that bad piece of pipe there. We're letting the traffic compact that stone that's in there right now, and as soon as that's compacted real well, and we have to coordinate with Wayne County, get their approval on making the resurfacing, because they want the 2-inch overlay I'm trying to convince them, the 50 feet south is all concrete, let's pour it all the way up. But we're still coordinating that with them. The dust control began today. Park Lane and Thoroughfare were both done. And we'll call them speed bumps on Meridian at Byramar and Highland have been removed. Concrete's in place. It's all beautiful.
Yeah, they look good, so.
And the contractor did an outstanding job there. And we did have a little difficulty with Wayne County again, and I thought I had it resolved, but somebody else came out, and so I brought Mr. Ream, Township Manager, out. Hopefully it's all resolved.
And they tried to stop the job, right?
Correct. Because we poured it all the way up, because they want that 2-inch cap. I explained to them with the plates being 18 feet wide, it's just too far of a span. You can't, you got to pour it all the way up. I said, what is the point of the overlay? Well, we want to match the existing pavement. So I'll paint the concrete black, it'll match it. I mean, that was the only explanation, was they wanted to match. So it's done. And let's see, we had the pre-construction meeting today with a chip seal. There was a question brought up last night at the Township Board meeting about the force mill. That is on the list, it's being addressed.
Okay. You've seen it?
Yes.
It wasn't marked off. And
They haven't gotten to it yet.
Oh, okay, because it almost
Needs
looks,
to be done.
yeah, absolutely.
As you can see, that was the prior project, that was the sewer project.
Well, and that's what it looked like,
So
it
it's
was
settling.
sinking, yeah, and settling there, so.
So that's going to
yeah.
be torn out and redone.
Okay, good.
So I assume they were out marking today, is that right?
Did he go back out?
Additional.
I don't know if I think he was.
But anyway, they'll be out, they weren't
So-
finished, that's all.
Correct.
No, they're not done.
So,
But it will be addressed.
well,
Thanks,
good,
John.
John, thanks for that update.
You're welcome.
And then, John speaking reminded me about that other drain we didn't talk about yet. I'll come back to that.
No problem.
Lorinda,
No other.
you're done?
I'm done. I'm
Raise
still
your hand.
talking about
Well,
dust
good.
control, but he took
She was
it.
pointing, she was pointing to
That's
John.
okay. I was going to mention dust control, but he took care of it.
Okay. One other thing that Les and I, this morning, we were out looking at some drains, and I wanted to have him show me the one that he's been complaining about for a couple of years.
About 7.
Which is, I want to say, not behind the fire station, but to the south of the fire station, in the woods, be the south east quadrant, northeast quadrant of the interchange of Meridian and Parkway. The woods is underwater. And what Les would like to do is, he thinks he knows the solution, but there was a blockage put in there some years ago where they just dumped extra dirt in an area that has dammed the water from getting to the outlet. So we talked about it, and there's a lot of water there, and the trees are dying. So I know it's hard to come without a written report, but I would be very much in favor of authorizing Raines Engineering to do an initial analysis. We could set a dollar limit, because it needs to be addressed. It's creating, the water is at least an acre in size, wouldn't you say?
It's created a health hazard, is what it's done.
Yeah. So we don't have anything in writing. It wasn't an action item. I mean, we could put it on the next agenda. Maybe that's the way to go, get an estimate. So I'll just ask Lorinda, will you put it on the next agenda?
Sure.
We'll come up with a name for this drain. What would you call it?
Mickey Drain.
Is it part of the Frenchman's Creek?
Well, it's the tail end of it, yeah, but it's your,
It's the north end of the Frenchman's Creek?
right, part of it.
Let's call it the Schmidtke Swamp. The north end of the Frenchman's Drain, we'll put a title on that. We'll ask Sohail to come back with an estimate to do a survey out there to look at that drainage problem. And we'll put that on the agenda for our next meeting, and you'll solicit a price from him, and I'll be able to discuss with him where it's at. I think he already knows about
He
it.
knows about it, yeah.
One more thing.
Okay. Jim?
The Frenchman's Creek drain is at the south end, that's where I live, and for some reason I have to wander out there and take a look at it. And when it rained so hard, was that Tuesday night and Wednesday? It was within 1.5 inches of the top of the pipe, and that's a 5-foot
6 foot.
It comes from golf.
I know, but man, I was surprised it was that close to the top. But it was working quite well.
And I would say, Craig, you haven't come to many of our meetings, but over the last 5 years, we've taken on a number of drain projects. You may remember the one from Rucker that flooded the area. We've been very successful in solving these drain problems, so I guess we're proud of that fact. We've helped a lot of residents that way. And they keep coming up. I mean, I keep thinking we're going to run out of them, but we don't. All right, so, and no further business come to the commission? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Support. Moved and supported, all in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned, thank you.